They say the highway never sleeps. Even when the world's quiet, even when every light's out, it keeps breathing. Some folks think it's just the engines and the tires and the wind. But if you've ever driven through fog at 3 a.m. and felt that hum beneath your wheels, you know better. It's not the wind you hear. It's not the road settling. It's the sound of something waiting. Every stretch of asphalt has a story. A wreck that didn't make the papers. A worker who didn't clock out. A noise no machine could make. And the longer the line of concrete runs, the deeper it digs into the dark beneath us. Tonight's story comes from one of those men who keep the roads alive when the rest of us are sleeping. He thought he was just fixing cracks and changing signs. But some cracks don't want to be fixed. If you're driving right now, look at the seams in the pavement. Every one of them is a scar. And some scars bleed. This is, I work the highways at night. Something's out there, trying to break through. And you're listening to Psychosnare, true life horror story.
My name's Jenkins. I work the highways at night. And lately, I've heard the knock beneath the asphalt. Something's out there, trying to break through.
I work the highways at night. Always have. Been 12 years since I first put on the reflective vest and climbed into a state truck with the Mississippi Department of Transportation. The job's simple on paper. Keep the lights blinking, the markers bright, and the lanes clear. Folks drive over it all day without a thought. But at night, it's just me, the hum of the engine, and a world wrapped in blacktop. Most nights start quiet. The kind of quiet that ain't silence, but something heavy, like the air's waiting for you to say the wrong thing. I check my tools, fill out my route sheet, sip the burnt coffee from the depot vending machine, and head out around sunset. Once you leave the last gas station behind, the highway turns into another world. No people, no noise, just road. My stretch runs from Jackson down toward Macomb. Long way of empty. The kind where headlights look like ghosts until you blink. I used to play gospel or old blues just to feel less alone, but after a while, even that felt wrong. The sound bounced back from the dark like it had somewhere to go, like something out there was listening. So now, I keep it quiet. You ever been somewhere so empty you can hear your own heartbeat over the wind? That's what it's like out there. You start thinking maybe the world forgot about you. Then you see a shape move between the reflectors, and your stomach drops before your brain can name it. I try not to think about that part. My grandma, Thelma May, she warned me years ago, ain't nothing out there worth seeing after them church lights go out. I laughed back then. We all did. But I think about her more now. About how she never drove after dark. How she'd cross herself every time we passed a bridge. I used to think she was superstitious. Now I think she just knew something I didn't. There's a stretch of road past Bentonia where fog sits low, thick as old breath. I was there one March night, checking reflectors. I remember how the frogs in the ditches were loud, like they were trying to drown something else out. The air smelled like wet pine and diesel. Halfway through the run, my radio went dead. Not static, just gone. I stopped the truck, stepped out, and that's when I saw him. At first, I thought it was a hitchhiker. Tall, thin, standing on the other side of the guardrail, maybe 20 yards ahead. But he wasn't holding a light or wearing anything reflective. Just stood there, still as the post behind him. I called out, but my voice sounded strange in the fog. It didn't echo. It just stopped. Then my headlights flickered, and when they came back, he was gone. Now, I've seen drunks, runaways, even deer that looked too much like people in bad light. But this wasn't that. The air still felt heavy after he vanished, like something had been standing there and just stepped backward into the dark. I climbed out to check. My boots hit gravel, and the sound went nowhere. Then I heard something I can't forget, whispering, low and breathy, like air trying to talk. Could have been wind, I told myself. Could have been, but it wasn't. When I got back in the truck, my mirror showed fog, but the fog was moving against the wind. Slow, like it was following me. The next morning, I checked the dash cam footage. Around the time I'd stopped, the video froze, one single frame of shape half visible by the guardrail. Not a man exactly, more like the outline of one, blurred, stretched, wrong. My skin went cold. I didn't tell anyone. You don't last in this job if you start seeing ghosts. But something changed after that night. The silence got heavier. The dark got thicker. Some nights I'd stop to replace a dead marker, and the hum of the highway would go still. No bugs, no frogs, just quiet. Like everything out there was holding its breath. Once, near Crystal Springs, I found a reflector post bent backward. Looked like something had leaned into it from the other side. The dirt around it was smooth, no tracks, no prints. But when I brushed it off, I found something that didn't sit right. Finger marks. Not 5, 6. Long, deep, pressed into metal like the hand had come through, not down. I told myself it was machinery damage. That's what I wrote in the log. But I couldn't shake the thought that maybe it wasn't the metal that bent, maybe it was the world. My buddy Clarence drives night hauls for a shipping company. He's one of those men who laughs too loud and tells stories that always end with "I ain't lying." Over coffee at a truck stop outside Hazelhurst, I told him about the man by the guardrail. He got quiet, real quiet. Then he asked, "You ever hear Mile 99? I shook my head. "Used to be a rest stop there," he said. "Back in the 70s. They shut it down after folks started disappearing. State paved right over it. Daddy said the crews used to hear knocking from under the asphalt before it was closed." He grinned after he said it, but it wasn't the kind of grin you hold. It twitched. "You ever hear knocking out there, Jay?" I told him no. That was a lie. See, there's a kind of knocking that don't come from anything living. Not from tires, not from pipes, not from tools. It's slow, patient, like it knows you'll stop to listen. Some nights when I'm out there, I hear it under the road. Tap, 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 then silence. Sometimes it stops when I move. Sometimes it waits. But I always know it'll come back. That's the part that gets me. Not the sound itself, but the waiting. Highway work changes you. You stop thinking of the world as solid. After a while, the lines on the road start to look less like paint and more like scars. The seams between lanes, thin cracks of tar, feel like something trying to hold the world together. I keep telling myself it's just a job. Just roads, lights, and dirt. But deep down, I know that a lie too. Because lately, when I stand still out there and listen close, I swear I can hear it breathing back. And if you've ever driven those empty roads at night, alone, with nothing but white lines and fog for company, maybe you've heard it too. If you have, you already know why I keep talking. Why I keep driving. Why I keep recording this. Because once you've heard the knocking, you never stop listening for it. The week after I talked to Clarence, I couldn't stop thinking about that rest stop he mentioned, Mile 99. The way he said it stuck to me, like a splinter under the skin. I started noticing things that didn't add up. The cameras on my truck began freezing at random. Not long, just a flicker, but always at the same spots along the route. Sensors went dark in clusters. Some reflectors would be ripped clean from their posts, as if something had pried them loose from inside the ground. One night I was swapping batteries near Magnolia when I heard it again. The tapping. It started soft, steady, under the hum of the highway. Knock. Pause. Knock, knock. I froze, half crouched by the marker. I told myself it was a water pipe, maybe a loose bracket, but there are no pipes under that shoulder. Only earth. When I pressed my hand to the ground, it was colder than it should have been. Wet, slick like skin. Then something pushed back. Not hard, but enough for me to feel it move. Like the ground breathed under my palm. I jumped to my feet, heart racing. The sound stopped. The frogs started again, slow and broken, like they'd forgotten the tune. I got back in the truck, slammed the door, and told myself to keep driving. But as I pulled away, I could hear behind me. Knock, knock, knock. Following. I turned the radio up, but there was nothing, just static whispering through the speakers, forming shapes that almost sounded like words. That night I dreamed about the road. In the dream, the white lines weren't paint. They were cracks, long and deep, with something bright moving underneath them, trying to push through. The whole world above them was thin, soft, stretched like skin over bone. I woke up sweating and shaking. I tried to tell myself it was just stress. Night work does strange things to the mind. But when I clocked in the next evening, my supervisor, Mr. Grady, called me into the office. "You're pulling double routes too often," he said. "You need rest, Jenkins." His office smelled like Windex and tobacco. I told him I was fine. He squinted at me. "You hear anything out there?" I froze. "What you mean?" He shook his head. "Doesn't matter. Just do your work. Leave the stories alone." Stories. He said it like he'd heard them before. That night, I saw something new. I was driving northbound on I-55, fog low and thick. About a mile before exit 124, my truck headlights caught a shimmer along the road. Looked like heat waves, but it was cool out. When I stopped, the shimmer didn't vanish. It slid, like something alive, dragging itself just below the surface. I got out slow, flashlight trembling in my hand. The air smelled like iron, like when you bite your tongue. That's when I noticed the scratches. Long, pale marks running parallel to the asphalt, spaced just right for fingers. They led from the center seam to the guardrail. I followed them with the light until they disappeared under the metal. The guardrail was dented inward, like something underneath had hit it from below. My heart thudded so hard I felt in my teeth. I climbed back in the truck and didn't stop until I saw the next set of highway lights in the mirror. The next day I told Clarence what I'd found. He didn't laugh this time. "Man," he said, "if I were you, I'd stay away from that stretch. Some places don't want to be worked on." I told him I didn't have a choice. He just looked at me and said, "Everybody's got a choice. Question is how long you keep pretending you don't." I didn't see Clarence again after that. He stopped answering calls a week later. Around that same time, weird things started happening during the day. Birds wouldn't land near the medians. The stray dogs that used to sleep under the rest areas stopped showing up. I even noticed the bugs were gone. No crickets, no gnats, like the ground had swallowed their sound. But the worst part came from the truck. The dashboard lights started flickering every night at the same time. 3:07 a.m. exactly. Didn't matter where I was. The radio would cut in and out, sometimes whispering, sometimes humming. Once, I swear I heard my own voice come through the speakers. "Stay on the line." It said just like that. My voice, but not quite. A little slower, like it was being played through water. I pulled over right there on the shoulder, heart pounding. I checked the recorder, the radio, even the wires under the dash. Nothing. When I looked up, the fog ahead of me had thickened again, curling over the highway like breath on glass. I sat there, frozen, engine idling, until a shape moved across the road, tall, thin, walking slow like it didn't have bones. The headlights caught its edge, but not its face. The beam bent around it, like light didn't want to touch it. Then it turned. I didn't see eyes, but I felt them. The radio crackled again, and that same voice whispered, "Don't stop." I hit the gas. The thing stepped forward, 1 foot, then gone, vanished into the fog like it had melted back into the road. I didn't sleep when I got home. I sat in the kitchen till dawn, lights on, just listening. Every time a truck passed in the distance, I flinched at the sound of tires hitting seams. That morning, I called my grandma. She's 83 now, her voice soft and thin. I told her what I'd seen. She didn't sound surprised. "Baby," she said, "you remember what I told you? Stay off them roads after dark." "I can't, Grandma. It's my job. Jobs can be left," she said. "Graves can't." She told me something that I wish I hadn't asked for. "You think them seams are just cracks, but they're doors. Anything made of pieces can be taken apart. You just keep in the middle, and you don't stop on no seam. You hear me?" I promised I would, but I lied, because a week later, I had to stop again. Same fog, same stretch, same sound. The knocking started slow, steady, underneath the center line this time. When I knelt down, the asphalt felt like it was breathing. I could see it rise and fall in the light. Then, from somewhere deep under the road, a woman's voice whispered, "Let me through." I didn't quit after that night. Should have. But quitting don't pay rent, and fear don't fill a gas tank. So I kept driving. Same route, same silence, same empty miles where the fog sits low and the seams look too straight to trust. After a while, you start telling yourself stories just to make sense of things. That's what I did. I told myself it was stress, sleep loss, maybe a gas pocket under the asphalt. Anything that sounded normal. But normal don't talk back. A few nights after I heard that voice, the cameras on my truck went blank for 30 seconds straight. Not static, just black. When the feed came back, every lens had fog from the inside. That ain't supposed to happen. I wiped one clean and found fingerprints on the glass. Long ones, smeared from the inside out. I told Mr. Grady, but he just waved it off. Condensation, he said. Equipment glitch. Then he told me to stop working alone so late. But I don't have a partner anymore. They pulled overtime funding months ago. So I kept working alone. That's when I started seeing the stuff. Little things at first. A baby's shoe sitting in the middle of the lane divider, clean as if it had been placed there minutes ago. A red ribbon tied around a reflector post near exit 119. A broken watch still ticking. I didn't touch any of it. Didn't move it either. Each night, there was something new. Always on the shoulder. Always near the seams. Once I found a single photograph face down in the gravel. It showed a man in a DOT jacket, like mine, but the face was smudged out, blurred like the photo, didn't want to remember him. When I flipped it over, the back was wet. Not with rain. Something thicker. That night, the radio cut in again. A whisper, drawn out like a breath between teeth. "Stay on the line." I pulled over, killed the engine, and waited. Nothing but the dark and the faint ticking of the hazard lights. Then came the tapping. Knock. Knock, knock from somewhere behind me. I spun around, but no one was there. Just the fog hanging heavy, the air thick like a held breath. The next day I thought about calling in sick, but something about that felt worse. Like not showing up would mean giving it permission to move without me. So I went back out. That evening I stopped at the Loves off Highway 27. The same older lady with the blue scarf was working the counter. She looked at me long before I reached the register. "You the highwayman?" she asked. I nodded. Her eyes flicked toward the window, where the sodium lights hummed over the parking lot. "You been hearing it, ain't you?" I didn't answer. She leaned closer. "They've been knocking since my granddaddy's time. Some say the road don't just carry people. It carries what's left of them. You listen close, you'll hear it trying to breathe through." Her voice shook, but her eyes didn't. "You think asphalt keeps them down? It don't. It just slows them." I felt my stomach turn. "What are they?" She shook her head. "Don't ask what. Ask when." I left without my change. Out on the road, her words rolled around in my head until the noise of my tires started to sound like whispering. Every bump felt alive. Every curve in the white lines felt too smooth, like something was pressing from underneath. When I pulled over near Crystal Springs that night, I saw fog rising from the seams, not drifting up, but being pushed like breath against glass. I crouched down, my flashlight shaking. The smell hit me first, sweet and metallic, like blood and flowers. Then the sound started. Faint, rhythmic, the same pattern I'd heard before. Not pause, knock, knock. It came from under the center line, slow and steady. I pressed my palm to the road. It pulsed once like a heartbeat. That's when I heard the hum. Not from the truck, not from the wind, underneath everything. A deep vibration, low and steady, like the world had an engine running somewhere below. The hum followed me all the way to the next exit. By the time I parked for the night, I was shaking so bad I could barely hold my keys. I sat there in the dark, engine off, and listened. Silence. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, the seam on the road behind me glowed faint white, stretching into the dark like a vein. I don't scare easy. You can't. Not in this line of work. But something about that glow, it felt personal, like it knew I was watching. I turned the key, headlights on, but the beam didn't hit the pavement right. The light bent upward, just slightly, like the road was no longer flat. Then, through the noise of the idling engine, I heard another sound, soft, muffled. Not knocking this time. Whispering. I couldn't make out words, but it was close. Too close. I stepped out, flashlight raised. The air was colder than it should have been. The fog seemed to pull back just enough to show the edge of the shoulder. That's when I saw it. A single handprint pressed into the asphalt. Black as tar, fingers stretched wide. It shimmered faintly under the light, as if the heat of the world couldn't touch it. I took a picture. My phone froze, then rebooted on its own. When it came back, the photo was gone. In its place was an audio file I didn't record. 6 seconds long. The first 4 seconds were static. The last 2 were me. My voice, whispering, "Don't stop on the seam." I told myself I'd quit after that night. I meant it too. But come Monday, there I was, clocking in like nothing happened. That's the curse of habit. You can get used to anything, even fear. The district office felt strange that morning. Too quiet. Usually the night crews were swapping stories, half laughing, half complaining. Not that day. Nobody looked at me. Nobody said a word. Grady called me into his office again. His hands were shaking when he lit his cigarette. "You been talking to anyone outside this department?" he asked. "No, sir." He studied me through the smoke. "Good. Keep it that way." Then he handed me a sealed envelope. New route assignment. Effective tonight. Inside was a printed map. Fresh run starting north of Jackson, through Canton, looping straight through mile 99. Scribbled at the bottom in black ink were the words. "Check for subsurface shift. Midnight. Do not shut off engine." I asked what that meant. Grady just said, "Follow orders." That night, I started the route. The air felt different before I even hit the main stretch. The sky had gone blood orange at sunset, then fell to gray so thick it swallowed the stars. I turned off the radio. Didn't want to risk hearing my own voice again. By the time I reached mile 99, the road was empty. Not a single truck or car for miles. Just fog, red tail light haze from nowhere, and the steady hum of the highway breathing under me. I slowed to a crawl near the old mile marker, rusted, half buried in grass. The fog was heavy enough to mute sound. No crickets, no wind, not even my own footsteps when I stepped out. When I opened the reflector casing, condensation dripped out, thick and dark. I wiped it with my sleeve and froze. There were shapes moving beneath the glass. Not reflections, shadows sliding slow, like fish under ice. I blinked, and they shifted toward me. Then the ground rippled. Not a tremor. A ripple, like something exhaled under the asphalt. Knock. Pause. Knock, knock. I felt it through my boots, steady, rhythmic, patient. Then a smell hit me. Iron. Ozone. Honeysuckle. Sweet and wrong. The hum I'd heard before came back, deep and steady, vibrating through my ribs. I could almost feel it in my teeth. And then, through the fog, I heard a woman's voice. Soft. Clear. "You shouldn't be here." I spun around. Nobody. Just the whisper of the highway, stretching forever. But I knew what I heard. I climbed back in the truck and floored it, tires screaming against the wet road. For half a mile, the fog chased me, rolling and pulsing like it was alive. When I got back to the depot, I told Grady everything. He didn't blink, didn't even look up from his paperwork. "Stay off the radio," he said, "and stop logging ghost stories." Then he slid a second envelope across the desk. Inside was a form with my name already typed to the top. Non-disclosure agreement. "What's this for?" I asked. He exhaled smoke. Standard confidentiality. But there was a line on the bottom that made my blood run cold. Subject: Highway 49/Project Linefall. "Grady," I said, "what's Project Linefall?" He crushed his cigarette out slow. "You don't want to know." I left without signing. When I got home that morning, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing that ripple under the asphalt, that glassy shimmer. I dug through old DOT reports online, looking for anything about Project Linefall. Nothing. The search results just looped back to blank pages or dead links. The only thing I found was a list of discontinued rest stops. One at mile 99, permanently closed after structural collapse and subsurface instability. No mention of what caused it. I thought about Clarence then. He'd gone quiet after that last call. I tried his number again, straight to voicemail. So I drove by his place. His mailbox was stuffed full, grass grown high, truck gone. The neighbor said he left for a private contract up north. But there was something in her tone that didn't sound like truth. On my way back, I stopped at a diner we used to eat at near Hazelhurst. The waitress, same one who'd served me coffee for years, froze when she saw me. "You're still out there?" she asked. "Yeah." "What?" She set down my cup slow. "Then don't stop. Not for nobody." She wouldn't say more. By the time I hit the highway again, night had settled thick. The world outside the windshield looked too flat, too still. My headlights bounced off fog that didn't move right. Then, for just a second, I saw something in the mirror. A figure, standing in the middle of the road behind me, perfectly still. I hit the brakes, heart pounding. When I looked again, it was gone. But my dash cam light flickered on. Recording. I hadn't touched it. The feed showed the same stretch of road, empty. Then, in the corner of the frame, something shimmered. Not fog, not light. A shape. The pavement bulged upward like something under it was pushing to get out. Then it stopped. The next morning, Grady's office was empty. Desk cleared. Computer gone. No trace of him in the system. They said he retired early. But when I walked to my truck that night, there was a folded note under my wiper blade. Typewritten. No signature. Project Linefall. Structural integrity compromised. Maintain surveillance. Do not disrupt the seams. Contact will initiate soon. That word, contact, made my stomach drop. Contact with what? I stared down the dark highway stretching past the lot, the white lines glowing like scars. For the first time since I started this job, I didn't want to get in the truck. But I did. And when the engine turned over, I swear I felt a hum in time with my heartbeat. Like the road knew I was coming. The following week, they called for an emergency night meeting at the Canway station. Only the night crews got the notice. No day shift, no supervisors from headquarters, just us. When I pulled up, I saw about a dozen trucks parked in a half circle around a maintenance shed. The floodlights hummed overhead, throwing long shadows across the gravel. Everyone looked tired, quiet. Nobody was joking, not even Tommy Ray, who could usually make a sermon sound dirty. Mr. Grady wasn't there. Instead, a man I'd never seen before stood at the front of the shed, a tall guy in a black windbreaker with no name tag. He didn't introduce himself, didn't smile. Behind him, a projector screen flickered with a paused video feed. When everyone settled in, he pressed play. At first, it was just a highway shot, grainy, foggy, probably from one of our stationary cameras. The timestamp read 12 a.m. on the. Then something shimmered across the frame, like heat ripples, except it was cold that night. The fog bent backward, like wind blowing the wrong way. Then 3 silhouettes appeared in the middle of the road. No faces, no clothes you could name, just human shapes cut from darker air. They stood still for about 4 seconds. Then the center one raised its arm, slow, deliberate. The asphalt under its feet bulged upward, just slightly, before flattening again. Someone in the back whispered, "Jesus Christ." The man at the front paused the video and said, "This was recorded near Port Gibson last Thursday. Ground compression registered 6 inches upward. No visible cause." Nobody said a word. He clicked to the next slide, another stretch of road, this one closer to Jackson. Same timestamp, same shapes. Then he flipped again. This time, The camera view showed a DOT truck parked along the shoulder. My truck. The silhouette stood in front of it, faint but clear, and under them, a line of pale light pulsed along the center seam, spreading both directions like a heartbeat. My stomach dropped. The man looked straight at me. "You're Jenkins, right?" I nodded. He tilted his head. "We believe the seams are acting as conduits." "For what?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. He just stared at the screen, then said, "We're not certain yet, but interference is spreading north and west along I-55. One of the other guys, Hollis, I think, asked, "You mean like a signal?" The man said, "More like a current." That word didn't sit right. The projector flickered again, this time showing a top-down view of the entire highway system in red. Certain sections glowed brighter. Interchanges, crossings, bridge joints. Everywhere the roads intersect, he said, energy readings spike. The seams may not be simple expansion joints. They may function as containment lines. Think of them as welds holding pressure. Pressure from what? I asked. He shut off the projector. That's classified. The lights buzzed louder for a second, then dimmed. Nobody moved. Then he said, "Stay on your routes. Log any irregular vibrations or temperature changes. And don't, under any circumstances, attempt to open or disturb a seam." The meeting ended there. As we filed out, I caught sight of a folder on the table marked Linefall, Phase 3. My name was printed on the cover. When I asked about Grady, the man said, "Mr. Grady's been reassigned." That's all you need to know. I didn't sleep that day. I drove home in silence, my hands shaking the whole way. The hum in the pavement was louder now, almost like it was following me. That night, while doing a standard check along mile 103, the hum grew so deep it rattled the mirrors. My teeth ached. I pulled over and turned off the engine, hoping to pinpoint it. But when the truck went quiet, the hum didn't stop. It was underneath everything. Under the tires, the ground, my skin. A vibration that felt alive. I knelt down and pressed my ear to the asphalt. For a second, there was nothing. Then, clear as a heartbeat, came the sound of breathing. I jerked back and fell onto the shoulder, my hand shaking. The noise faded, but the vibration didn't. It stayed low and constant, like something big and buried was shifting. That's when I remembered what the woman at the gas station said. They've been knocking since my granddaddy's time. What if the highways weren't built to keep something out? What if they were built to keep something down? The thought crawled into my head and stayed there. Every mile I drove after that felt different. The seams weren't cracks anymore. They were scars. Stitch marks holding the country together. And maybe those stitches were starting to come loose. When I got home the next morning, I couldn't stop pacing. Every sound made me jump. The refrigerator hum, the ticking of the wall clock, even the air conditioner. It all carried the same rhythm, the same pulse. I checked my phone just before sunrise. I had one new voicemail, time-stamped 3:07 a.m., the same time my truck's radio always glitched. When I played it, there was static for a few seconds. Then a whisper, "Stay on the line." My own voice again. I deleted it, but the sound kept echoing in my head long after. I didn't know it yet, but that night was only the beginning. The hum had followed me home, and it wasn't going to stop. After that meeting, I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't fixing the highways anymore. We were maintaining a lid on something that didn't want to stay buried. Grady's gone. That quiet man from the meetings vanished too, and nobody at the office talks about Linefall. They still send route maps and equipment check, orders, but I can tell the messages aren't coming from the same people. The tone's off, colder, mechanical. A few days later, I went looking for Clarence. I still had access to the system, so I pulled up his old run logs from the Meridian branch. His last recorded stop was at mile 101, 2 miles from where I'd heard the woman's voice whisper, "Let me through." The timestamp read 12:03 a.m. Then nothing. No return ping. No sign-off. I don't know why I did it, but that night I drove there. I told myself I just wanted to see, but truth was, I already knew something bad had happened. The fog was thick again, the kind that makes sound feel far away. I left the truck running, hazard lights on, and walked the shoulder with my flashlight. For a long time, there was nothing. Just dirt, asphalt, and the faint smell of tar. Then I saw it, something shiny half buried in the gravel. I brushed it off and froze. It was Clarence's badge. The metal was warped and darkened around the edges, like it had been burned. But the middle was still clean, still showing his name and photo. The picture made my stomach turn. His eyes were open, but not normal. They were blurred, like they'd been stretched across the image, pulled in two directions. I pocketed the badge and stood up, meaning to leave. That's when the ground started to move. A faint tremor ran under my feet, steady, pulsing. Knock, knock, knock. I backed away, but it followed. The asphalt flexed in front of me, slow and deliberate, like something underneath was pressing upward. Then the light from my flashlight dimmed. I hit it against my palm. Nothing. The dark swallowed everything but the hum of the truck behind me. I turned toward the sound and froze. There, under the center line, the asphalt went translucent for just a second, long enough for me to see something beneath it, something that shouldn't be. It was a face, Clarence's face. He was kneeling below the surface, his eyes open, mouth moving like he was screaming, but no sound came out. His hands were pressed upward, fingers splayed, skin blistering where it touched the underside of the road. I stumbled backward, nearly fell, heart pounding so hard I could taste it. Then, just as fast as it came, the image vanished. The asphalt flattened, perfect again. The truck's radio screeched to life behind me, static and then a voice. He stayed on the line too long. My voice. I don't remember running to the truck, but I was inside with the door locked before I even realized I'd moved. The radio hissed once more, then went quiet. When I looked down at my hands, they were shaking. Dust from the road clung to my palms like ash. I sat there until the fog thinned and the sky started to lighten, then drove straight to the depot. Grady's office was still empty, his nameplate gone. I asked the clerk at dispatch if anyone knew was in charge. She looked confused. Grady retired months ago, she said. No, I told her. Last week. I just saw him. She shook her head. He's been gone. Ain't been here all summer. That didn't make sense. I'd spoken to him days ago. He'd handed me the line fall file himself. I checked the records on my work tablet. Every message, every instruction from him, deleted. Like he'd never existed. That night, when I went to my truck, there was a folded piece of paper under the windshield wiper again. The same typewritten style as before. No name. No signature. Project Linefall. Structural integrity compromised. Maintain surveillance. Do not disrupt the seams. Contact will initiate soon. Same words. Except this time, there was one more line at the bottom. Personnel integration in progress. I didn't like the sound of that. I crumpled the note, tossed it on the passenger seat, and started the engine. The dashboard glowed bright, but the gauges flickered once, like the truck itself was struggling to wake up. When the radio came on by itself, I damn near jumped out of my skin. The voice wasn't mine this time. It was Clarence's. Jenkins, it said. Don't stop. Don't let it. Then static. The headlights blinked. For a second, I thought I saw movement in the reflection of the hood. Something sliding just beneath the surface of the metal, like heat distortion. That's when I realized it wasn't my reflection anymore. The man in the chrome looked like me, but not right. He blinked a moment too late, moved just out of sync. When I tilted my head, he smiled. I threw the truck into reverse and hit the gas. Gravel spit out from the tires, and for half a mile, the road behind me glowed faint white along every seam. When I finally stopped, heart hammering, the glow faded. The hum did not. It followed me home. That night, I dreamed I was trapped beneath the road, face pressed against the blacktop, my voice whispering through the seams. Stay on the line. When I woke up, my phone was ringing. Unknown number. I answered. Static first, then a voice, female, calm, deliberate. Contact has begun. Then silence. I checked the call log. No record. The next morning, I found new instructions in my inbox. No sender. Just a single line. Proceed to mile 148. Observe the living road. I told myself I wasn't going to mile 148. I said it out loud. Even wrote it down in my logbook. Do not proceed. But that night, when I got behind the wheel, my hands turned the ignition anyway. I don't know if it was habit, fear, or something else, something guiding me. The moment the engine started, the hum was already there, deep under the tires, matching the idle of the motor like a second heartbeat. The air that night was wrong, heavy. The moon hid behind clouds that looked too low, too solid. Even the bugs were silent. Every mile marker I passed flickered once as I drove by, like the lights knew I was coming. By the time I reached the stretch near 148, I could see the fog ahead glowing faint white. I slowed down, headlights cutting through, until the beams met the road and the light bent upward. At first, I thought it was heat shimmer again, but the air was cold. The asphalt was rippling, slow and steady, like something breathing just beneath the surface. I stopped the truck, left the engine running, and stepped out. The smell hit me first. Tar, ozone, and something sweet underneath it like burned sugar. When I crouched down, I could see movement inside the road. Not reflections. Shapes. Faint and flickering. Cars, hundreds of them, layered under the surface like a mirror made of smoke. I blinked, and the scene sharpened. There was another highway down there. Not a reflection. A whole other road, stretching beneath mine, glowing faint white through the cracks. The cars moving along were old, boxy frames, chrome grills, models from the 50s and 60s. Each one drove in perfect formation, headlights on, silent as ghosts. For every car that passed above, there was another mirror below. Then one of them slowed. It drifted right beneath my feet, matching my position exactly. The driver's window rolled down, slow as syrup, and then the man inside turned his head toward me. His face was pale, eyes empty like holes burned into paper. He smiled. The motion wasn't natural. It lagged, just a second off, like a copy that couldn't quite keep up. I stumbled backward, my boots scraping the gravel. The man kept staring, his mouth moving without sound. Then the whole layer below flickered once and vanished, leaving only the black surface of the road. I ran to the truck, slammed the door, and threw it in drive. The radio came on by itself, whispering static that wasn't random. It was rhythmic, layered, voices overlapping like a crowd speaking through one mouth. They all said the same thing. We built your roads. Now you carry us. My throat went dry. I drove fast, too fast, headlights bouncing. For a few miles, nothing changed. Then the dash lights began to pulse, dimming and brightening with the hum. The steering wheel trembled under my hands. When I looked in the mirror, the seams of the highway behind me glowed in sequence, one by one, like veins lighting up beneath skin. I pressed harder on the gas. The hum grew louder, vibrating the whole cab. The radio cut through the static again, this time with a voice I didn't know. Low, calm, too steady to sound human. Containment failing. Then the road ahead shimmered. The fog rolled back, revealing a long, straight stretch of highway that looked almost liquid, the lines pulsing faint white with each word from the radio. I slowed to a crawl. My headlights caught something etched into the asphalt. Symbols, faint but real, carved into the tar. Circles, cross marks, repeating in sets of 3. I leaned closer to the windshield, trying to read them. That's when the truck jerked. The tires screamed as the front end lifted an inch off the ground. It felt like something big and slow had just moved under me, pushing up. The hood rattled. The radio howled. Then silence. In the quiet, I could hear something faint under the truck, soft and wet, like hands sliding over metal. I didn't dare move. Then came the voice again. Not through the radio this time. Through the floor. It wasn't one voice. It was hundreds, all whispering the same line. Stay on the line. The words vibrated through the pedals, through my boots, straight into my bones. I floored it. The truck jumped forward, fishtailing on the shoulder. Behind me, the road rippled again. For a second, I saw them, hands pressing up through the seams, slick and black, grasping for light. They didn't break the surface. Not yet. But I could feel their weight, all of them, pushing up like the ground was full of people trying to climb out. I drove until the fuel light blinked red, and the hum finally faded. By the time I stopped, the sky was gray, and the morning sun was breaking through. The world looked normal again. Cars on the interstate, birds on the wires, a man in a work truck sitting on the side of the road, trying to remember how to breathe. I told myself I'd imagined it all, but when I checked the dashcam later, the footage showed something that made my hands shake. For the 3 minutes between mile 148 and 149, the camera recorded upside down. The sky was on the ground, the road was above, and the reflection of my truck drove beneath it. Only it wasn't me inside. The man behind the wheel didn't blink. He just smiled at the camera. I didn't go back to the depot after mile 148. I just drove. No direction, no plan, just movement. It felt safer that way. If I stopped, I could feel it again. The hum, the breathing. By the third night without sleep, I started seeing the seams light up even in daylight. Thin lines of white that pulsed once every few seconds, like veins under skin. It wasn't constant, just enough to make me doubt my own eyes. I kept the radio off, but it didn't matter anymore. The noise found me anyway. The hum had moved inside the truck, into the walls, into the glass. When I pressed my hand to the steering wheel, it throbbed faintly. Something was alive in there. I parked outside Brookhaven, on a stretch of road that curved through pine woods. It was quiet, still, the kind of silence that feels watched. For a long time, I just sat there listening. Then I said it out loud, like admitting it might make it less real. "What do you want?" The answer came back, soft and low, from beneath the truck. "Balance." I froze. The voice wasn't human, not angry, not kind, just certain. Then it said something else. "You built walls. You paved over the lines. You buried the door." The radio flickered on again by itself, the dial spinning until an old AM sermon cut through. A preacher's voice, calm and deep, talking about resurrection and the road to salvation. But every few sentences, the tone shifted. When the last seam breaks, it said, "We rise." Then the sermon snapped back to normal like nothing had happened. I turned the key and left it running. Couldn't turn it off anymore. I didn't trust silence. Around midnight, I noticed the temperature drop inside the cab. My breath fogged the glass. Then the condensation on the windshield began to move, slow, deliberate streaks, like invisible fingers tracing shapes. Letters. O, P, E, N. I jumped out, slammed the door, stumbled back toward the shoulder. My flashlight caught the road ahead, and my stomach dropped. Every seam in sight was glowing. White cracks spreading in both directions, faint at first, then brighter. The road was breathing again. Each pulse made the air ripple. The ground flexed, softening like wet leather. Then the radio in the truck screamed. The sound wasn't words, just a long, drawn-out wail that climbed higher and higher until it broke into whispers. Dozens of them, all saying the same thing. Trade. The seams began to bulge. Hands pushed up through the cracks, slick and black, fingers reaching, gripping at nothing. I backed away, shaking. No. The hum turned into a rhythm. It wasn't random. It matched my heartbeat. When I turned to run, the fog ahead parted, and there it was, another truck parked across the road. Identical to mine. Same make, same color, same logo. But when I looked closer, I saw my own reflection sitting inside it. Only it wasn't a reflection. It was me, or something wearing me. It stared through the windshield, eyes flat and hollow. Then it smiled. The same smile I'd seen in the chrome back at mile 101. It raised its hand, slowly, like it was waving me forward. I stumbled backward, hit the guardrail, and pain snapped me out of whatever trance I was in. The doppelganger tilted its head, still watching. Then, without sound, it mouthed 2 words. "Switch now." The headlights on its truck flared white, bright enough to blind me. When the light faded, the other truck was gone. Only mine remained. Engine running, driver's door open. Inside, the radio had gone silent, but the hum stayed steady, pulsing like breath. I didn't climb back in. Couldn't. I just stood there in the middle of the road, shaking, trying to understand. They weren't trying to break through. They were trying to replace us. Each knock, each whisper, it wasn't calling for help. It was calling for trade. And maybe they already started. Because ever since that night, my reflection doesn't move right. In the side mirror, when I blink, it blinks late. When I turn my head, it lingers, smiling faint, like it knows something I don't. Even at home, it happens. I caught in the microwave door once, just for a second. The reflection tilted its head the wrong way. Then it mouthed the words again, "Switch now." I smashed the glass, unplugged every mirror, every reflective surface I could find. But I still see it. In puddles, in the truck window, in the chrome of the gas pump. Always there, always waiting. That night, Grandma called me out of the blue. Her voice was thin, but steady. "I dreamed of you, baby," she said. "You were standing in the middle of a big empty road. Your shadow split in 2. One of you was trying to come home." I didn't know what to say. She hummed a hymn I hadn't heard since I was a kid, slow and mournful. Then she said, "Don't let it take your name." I asked her what she meant, but the line went dead before she could answer. When I called back, the number said disconnected. Now it's October. The hum's louder every night, and the seams are brighter than ever. The world's starting to look thinner, like the light's coming from underneath instead of above. I've stopped sleeping. Every time I close my eyes, I dream of roads folding upward like waves, of faces pressing against black glass, whispering my name. And each time I wake up, I can't tell which side I'm on anymore. They called it the Freedom Corridor. Brand new asphalt, clean lines, shiny signs with the governor's name on them. People clapped at the ribbon cutting, said it would bring new life to the state. I remember thinking it looked too perfect, like a wound bandaged too tight. They assigned me to the first diagnostic run. I guess they figured I was the only one left who still worked nights without asking questions. I tried to say no, told the dispatcher I wasn't feeling right. She said, "Orders come from higher up." "Higher up where?" I asked. She didn't answer, just hung up. So I drove. The new highway stretched straight and long, slicing through pine forest and swamp like a knife cut clean through the land. The smell of fresh tar was thick in the air, sharp and sweet, almost metallic. It made my throat itch. Every few miles, a row of new reflectors gleamed too bright. They looked like eyes when the headlights hit them, watching, waiting. The hum started before I even hit mile 5. Faint at first, then stronger, like the road was greeting me. I drove with the windows down, hoping the wind might drown it out. It didn't. The vibration crawled up through the tires, through the floor, into my legs. At mile 12, the first warning came through the radio. A single beep, then a flat voice. Not human, not recorded. Contact achieved. I slammed the brakes. The voice repeated it. Same tone, same calm. Contact achieved. When I looked at the display, every frequency was lit up at once. The ground beneath the truck pulsed. Not shook, pulsed, like it was breathing slow and steady. I got out, flashlight trembling in my hand. The night was quiet except for that low hum. The air had that sweet, iron taste again. I crouched by the center line and touched the asphalt. It was warm, too warm for midnight. The pulse came again, and the seams glowed pale, spreading outward in both directions. I could see movement under the surface. Slow, dark shapes turning, shifting, stretching. Then I heard the knocking. It came from everywhere, beneath, beside, behind. 100 little knocks blending into one rhythm. I backed toward the truck. "No," I whispered. "Not again." But it wasn't stopping this time. The center seam widened, a hairline crack opening like a mouth gasping for air. White light leaked out, soft but blinding. The radio came alive again, and this time the voice was mine. "Stay on the line." It said it over and over, overlapping itself until it didn't sound like me anymore, just a chorus of static and breath. The ground swelled beneath my boots. My legs felt weak, heavy, like the gravity was changing. I stumbled to the guardrail and leaned hard against it, breathing through my teeth. The whole road was glowing now, lines of light stretching ahead into forever. That's when I saw them. Figures, dozens of them, moving out of the surface, pressed flat, their faces sliding along the glassy black. Some looked like workers, some like drivers. A few looked like me, all of them mouthing the same words. "Switch now." My stomach turned. I dropped the flashlight and it rolled into the glow, disappearing like it fell through water. That's when I realized this wasn't just a haunting. This was a system. Every highway, every seam, every line, they were all connected. A network built to hold something underneath. But now that something was tired of holding still, and the road wasn't a road anymore. It was a living thing. The hum matched my pulse exactly. My vision blurred. I couldn't tell if the road was breathing or if I was. Then the voice came again, but this time it wasn't from the radio. It came from the road itself, from every seam, every line, speaking through the tar. "You were the last keeper, the last seal." My throat went dry. "What do you mean?" I asked. No answer. Only the hum, louder now, shaking the ground. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. It was Grandma. Her voice was weak, but clear. "You can't fix what's alive, baby. You can only feed it." "Grandma, where are you?" "They're hungry," she said softly. "Always been. You keep driving, you hear? Don't stop on no seam. Don't ever stop." The line went dead. I dropped the phone, heart hammering. My knees gave out, and I knelt right there in the middle of the lane. The glow surrounded me, bleeding through the cracks, casting shadows that moved on their own. I don't know how long I stayed there. Minutes, hours, it all blurred together. The hum rose higher and higher until it wasn't sound anymore, just pressure pushing against my chest, my skull. When it finally stopped, I looked up and realized I'd been marked. The center seam beneath me was burned black in the exact shape of my hands. I tried to wipe them clean, but the skin was hot, like the heat came from underneath. Somewhere behind me, the radio clicked on again. A woman's voice this time. "Come." The door is open. The truck headlights flickered once, twice, then flared so bright it hurt to look. And in that light, I saw the truth I'd been running from. Every one of us who works these roads, every night crew, every driver, every inspector, we're part of the system. We don't keep the highways safe. We keep them fed. And tonight was my turn. Light swallowed everything. When it faded, I wasn't sure if I'd gone blind or if the world itself had gone blank. The sky was gone, the trees gone. Even the horizon had vanished. All that remained was the road. It stretched out in both directions, endless and perfect, every seam glowing white. The air was still, thick, and humming like a giant throat clearing itself. I stood up dizzy. My reflection stared back at me from the pavement. Flat, too dark, moving a second too late. I tried to speak, but my voice came from both of us. One echoing on the surface, one beneath. Then it smiled, and this time I didn't. A sound rose beneath my boots, slow, heavy, rhythmic. The knock I'd heard for weeks, the heartbeat of the road. Only now I knew it wasn't knocking to get out. It was knocking to come in. The seam in front of me split open. A line of light cut down the center, like someone slicing the world in half. The air shimmered. Something beneath shifted. Huge, patient, ancient. I could feel it, not see it. The size of a mountain but moving like a tide. Then a hand emerged. Black as tar, slick as oil, fingers long and human-shaped, but wrong in their proportions. It reached upward, pressing against the open air, trembling as if it had waited centuries for this one moment. When it touched the light, the surface of the road shivered like water. Then came the faces, dozens at first, then hundreds, pressed against the underside of the seam, mouths open in silent screams, eyes wide with hunger and awe. I stumbled backward, choking on air that felt too thick to breathe. The voice came again, from everywhere at once. Balance must be kept. The seam widened. I could see the world below now, the mirror world. Highways running under highways, cars moving in silence, headlights pointing up instead of forward. And in one of those cars, sitting behind the wheel, was me. The other me. He looked calm, peaceful even. He raised his hand, palm out, as if offering to trade places. For a second, I almost said yes, because I was tired. Tired of the noise, the fear, the loneliness. Tired of holding the line for something no one believed in. Then I heard Grandma's voice again. Not from memory, from the wind. Don't let it take your name. I dropped to my knees, pressing my hands against the hot asphalt. The glow burned through my skin, but I didn't move. I'm not letting go. I whispered. Not yet. The hum rose, angry now. The road trembled like it was alive and furious. The figures below started slamming their hands against the surface, their mouths moving faster and faster. Switch now. Switch now. Switch now. I screamed until my throat tore, but my voice drowned under theirs. Then the light went white again. When I opened my eyes, I was sitting in my truck, engine running, radio silent. The sun was rising through the windshield. For a minute, I thought it was over. Maybe I blacked out, maybe it was all a dream. But when I looked down, my hands were still burned with the marks of the seams. The skin had split into thin white lines, glowing faint, pulsing slow. I checked the dash cam. The footage showed me sitting there all night, not moving. But in the reflection of the windshield, I was smiling. And I never smiled once. The truck's radio clicked on by itself. My voice came through, low and tired. Stay on the line. Then static. Then silence. I looked out at the new road. Fresh paint, clean blacktop, a perfect morning. Cars passing like nothing ever happened. And for a moment, I almost believed it. Until I noticed one thing. Every car's shadow stretched in the wrong direction. Away from the sun. I got out, legs weak, heart pounding. Walked to the center seam and crouched. The asphalt was cool, calm. But when I leaned close, I heard it again. So faint I almost missed it. Knock. Pause. Knock, knock. Then a whisper. Your turn. I froze. My breath caught in my chest. The road shimmered faintly, like it was waiting. Somewhere deep under the surface, I heard engines start. Hundreds of them. The ground pulsed once more. And then, softly, almost kindly, my own voice whispered back through the hum. Welcome to the night shift. They say the highway never sleeps. Even when the world's quiet, even when every light's out, it keeps breathing. Some folks think it's just the engines and the tires and the wind. But if you've ever driven through fog at 3 a.m. and felt that hum beneath your wheels, you know better. It's not the wind you hear. It's not the road settling. It's the sound of something waiting. Every stretch of asphalt has a story. A wreck that didn't make the papers. A worker who didn't clock out. A noise no machine could make. And the longer the line of concrete runs, the deeper it digs into the dark beneath us. Tonight's story comes from one of those men who keep the roads alive when the rest of us are sleeping. He thought he was just fixing cracks and changing signs. But some cracks don't want to be fixed. If you're driving right now, look at the seams in the pavement. Every one of them is a scar. And some scars bleed. This is, I work the highways at night. Something's out there, trying to break through. And you're listening to Psychosnare, True Life Horror Story.